What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In today's video for the First Descendant, we're going to be discussing the First Descendant that I managed to get to level 40, Bunny. And I'm going to show you how to turn her into an AoE powerhouse, which will in turn allow you to do a lot of the missions super fast and clear a lot of the content super easy. And you'll find your trip to level 40 with the Descendant super easy. Let's go. So firstly, speaking to Bunny's skill set and exactly what this Descendant excels at is obviously, as mentioned before, AoE. This builds off of the fact that her passive Rabbit Foot essentially builds a secondary stat called electricity, and basically the more electricity you have, the more damage your abilities like, for example, lightning emission does. So you always want to be moving, and you want to be moving as fast as possible via speed of light to be building this secondary stat electricity as much as possible, so that when you activate lightning emissions, those AoE pulses around you, that circle of lightning around you, is hitting as hard as possible. Therefore, if you're the kind of player that's looking for a Descendant that plays more slow and methodical and essentially stands at distance and snipes, or basically lays down traps or something like that and sort of moves slowly through the arena, then Bunny might not be the Descendant for you, since you'll actually be severely limiting the amount of damage that you can push out. That being said, if you can master this unique playstyle, you'll find that Bunny is one of the unique Descendants that's able to not only move from area to area faster, which means you'll be moving between missions quicker and just in overall traveling the world faster due to the fact that you have speed of light. You'll also be able to clear large groups of enemies and trash with relative ease by the press of like basically one button and just essentially running through them. And this is going to make a lot of these activities where you have to hold out areas and things like that super easy, because essentially you just activate lightning emissions and then run circles around the enemies, and you basically like area deny them and kill everything. Now when it comes to the actual build itself, one of the things that makes Bunny so good is the fact that you're going to have a natural power spike, a natural power increase just by playing the initial beginning parts of the game. And that's because of two reasons. First of all, essentially as you play through the game, of course, you're going to start in Kingston and you're going to progress into the Sterile Land. And basically when you finish the story of the Sterile Land, in other words, you've done all the campaign missions and you do your Void Intercept battle against the Stunning Beauty, you're going to have all the parts required to essentially build an exceptionally good weapon for Bunny. And at the same time, what you're going to be able to do is get yourself a really good reactor. The Thunder Cage is a weapon that's perfectly suited for Bunny's playstyle. And when coupled with a reactor like the Tingling Phase Reactor, which you also get at the end of the storyline of the Sterile Lands, because the optimized condition for the Tingling Phase Reactor is of course Thunder Cage, these two items together are going to give you a nice big power boost at that part of the game, and it's going to allow you to naturally transition into whichever activity you want to do and essentially level up as fast as possible. Now, when it comes to the weapons, does it mean that if you're not using the Thunder Cage on Bunny, you know, you're not doing enough damage? That's not necessarily true. The Thunder Cage is a fantastic weapon for her. In my opinion, probably one of the best. But basically what you want is anything that is good at run and gun. So sniper rifles and, you know, just in general, you know, rifles where you're shooting from far away, or guns that basically expect you to stand a little bit still, don't really work all that well. Whereas submachine guns, assault rifles, and shotguns that you can shoot off the hip work exceptionally well, because you can do that while you are basically using speed of light, or, you know, running circles around enemies. You can pop some shots off at the more difficult enemies. When it comes to your mods on weapons, this is not necessarily all that super important, because the bottom line is it also depends on which weapon you're using. If you're using submachine guns, you want to just basically stack on as much damage onto these as you can. You want to make the gun, you know, sort of like stable to shoot. And you want to, like I said, just give yourself some additional levels of damage there. Maybe add on some fire damage and give yourself some additional speed when reloading, and maybe a smaller increase to your magazine size. However, where it does matter is your Descendant modules. And here's where you can really flesh out a lot of Bunny's power. Of course, you're not going to have as much module capacity as I have if you're still building up, if you're still playing up to 40. But the bottom line is you should be prioritizing mods in here, or basically things that essentially modules that, you know, accentuate your damage with your bread and butter skills, like, for example, lightning emission. So things like skill extension will make it last longer, so that pulse that radiates around you and, you know, electrocutes things will last longer. Skill expansion will give it a larger radius, so it has like a 7-meter radius, I believe, at you know, at the start, so you can get this all the way up to, you know, 8.5 to 9 to 9.5 meters, which is huge. And then of course you can make the skills cost less, and you can give yourself some additional power modifiers on that. You can decrease the cooldown, which means you can really start spamming it. And essentially these all together, this 5 subset here is gonna really start showing you a lot of damage on those skills, more specifically again on lightning emission, which is really going to help you clear up groups like super fast once you start leveling these up a little bit. Now of course you also need to look a little bit at survivability, because you are going to have situations where you are running close to enemies, and if they have guns which shoot like in a cone in front of them, and you might have to eat some bullets, they might even hit you or something like that, you are going to be taking some damage. So increased shield is good, increased HP is good, and then when you start getting some of these rare mods, things that give you max shield and something else, or more defense and more skill power, something like that, all of that is actually going to help. But at the beginning, you should absolutely focus on fleshing these ones out. Your base HP and your base shield should be good enough as long as you're carrying gear that's appropriate to your level, and you can sort of prioritize damage for a little bit at the beginning of the game, especially if you have a slight level advantage over most of the enemies that you're fighting. Lastly, generally speaking, when it comes to your reactor and your external components, obviously you should be focusing on things that have skill power and let's say skill cost down or something like that on it. You want to be spamming your abilities as much as possible. You're going to be shooting and running and gunning in any case, but again, the point of this build is that you want to be killing large groups of enemies as fast as possible, and especially if you're playing those defense missions, because those ones are the best for essentially leveling up super fast. Like for instance the one in Kingston, then you will be wanting to spam your abilities as much as possible, as often as possible, and you want to be having them deal maximum damage so that you can keep one entire area of the map, for instance, locked down. So absolutely prioritize those. But even in this case, what you can see is I have like a hodgepodge mix of shit here. Like I have to optimize all of this. I have to go farm all the right gear. But even with this, with the combination of Thunder Cage and those mods and everything else that I've already mentioned, you're going to be dealing more than enough damage that these choices at this point in time are not necessarily that important. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. If you found this information useful in any way, consider giving the video a like, maybe drop a comment. It really does help the old algorithm in pointing people our way. If you like the First Descendant, sub to the channel. I've got a ton more content coming your way. But as always, it's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Till next video, fucking cheers.